2 a.m. The phone rang, jolting me from a half-sleep. It was from my friend. She'd just seen my husband in Miami, walking into a high-end restaurant with another woman. I turned my head and looked toward the study, where he was in the middle of a video conference. Then I quietly booked the earliest flight I could find, 2 a.m. My friend Chloe's call shattered the silence. She was in Miami, and she said she had just seen my husband, Julian, with his arm around another woman's waist, leading her into a luxurious restaurant. But when I turned my head to look at the study, Julian was clearly attending a multinational video conference. On the screen, I could see the faces of several executives. He was right here in our New York City apartment. How could he possibly be in Miami, over 1,000 miles away, at the same time? I decided I had to fly to Miami myself to uncover the identity of this impossible doppelganger. But the truth was far stranger than anything I could have ever imagined. 2 a.m. The ringing of my cell phone cut through the bedroom's quiet like a knife. I rubbed my tired eyes and fumbled for it on the nightstand. The screen's light stung. The caller ID read, Chloe. Hello? Chloe. What's going on at this hour? Before I could finish, an unrestrained sob erupted from the other end of the line. Claire, I really don't know if I should be telling you this, but you have to know. Sleep vanished instantly. I shot up in bed, my voice trembling. Where are you? What happened? I'm in Miami. I just left a private club. Chloe's voice broke intermittently as she tried to stifle her emotions. I saw your husband. He had his arm around a woman in a long, wine-colored dress. They were walking very close, heading into a French restaurant. The woman had a stunning figure, and her hair was in an elegant updo. You could tell she wasn't just anyone. I unconsciously turned my head. A warm sliver of light seeped from under the study door. Just 5 minutes earlier, I had brought my husband, Julian Parker, a glass of warm milk. He was in a video conference with the London office. On the screen were familiar faces: Mr. Davis, the VP of Operations, Miss Albright, the CFO, and even Mr. Chen from the tech team. I took a deep breath. My voice was surprisingly calm. Send me the exact location. I'm booking a flight now. Claire, aren't you furious? How can you be so composed? Chloe seemed shocked by my reaction. I hung up without another word. Julian was clearly in a meeting in his study, yet he had simultaneously appeared in Miami. What on earth was happening? I tiptoed to the study door and peered through the crack. Julian was still sitting at his desk, wearing a gray knit cardigan over his navy blue pajamas. He was speaking to the screen, his expression serious. Occasionally, he would jot down notes with a pen. In the bottom right corner of the screen, the time was clearly displayed, 2:15 a.m. Miss Albright was reporting on the last quarter's financial results. Mr. Davis would interject occasionally, and Mr. Chen was quietly taking notes. This was clearly a real meeting. Due to the time difference with London, it had to be held at this hour to align with their project timeline. I returned to the bedroom, my hands trembling slightly as I opened my phone. Chloe had already sent the location, a French restaurant called Azure Point on a coastal road in Miami. She had also sent 3 photos. They were a bit blurry and the lighting was dim, but I recognized the back of the man in the photo instantly. That charcoal gray cashmere coat, I had it specially imported from Italy for him last month. On the cuff, there was a small, custom embroidery pattern I had chosen myself. The man in the photo was wearing that exact coat with his arm around a woman's waist. I zoomed in on the woman. A long, wine-colored dress, hair swept up high. Her profile was delicate, with a slender jawline, but because of the angle, I couldn't see her features clearly. Chloe, are you sure? I texted her. Claire, we've known each other for years. How could I not recognize Julian? Chloe's reply came back almost immediately. And that coat? I've seen it before. It's that designer one from Italy you were telling me about last month. I was so jealous. I sat numbly on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. If Julian was in Miami right now, then who was the person in the study? If the person in the study was the real Julian, then who was the man in Miami? I tried to recall any of his recent strange behaviors. 2 weeks ago, he suddenly announced he was signing up for swimming lessons. He used to hate getting in the water. Last week, he said there was an executive health checkup at his company. but as far as I knew, the company's annual checkups were always in April. And he had been coming home late recently, claiming a new project was in its final stages and needed his direct oversight. I decided to verify one thing first. I picked up my phone and opened our home's smart security system app. We had CCTVs installed at the front door, dining room, and the entrance to the study for security. I pulled up today's video log and fast-forwarded from 6 p.m. The footage showed Julian coming home at 6:40 p.m., us having dinner together at 7:30 p.m., and him entering the study at 8:15 p.m., after which he never came out. The CCTV timeline was clear and showed nothing suspicious. But the time Chloe saw him in Miami was around 10 p.m. The flight from New York to Miami alone takes a few hours. Unless he could teleport, it was chronologically impossible. I re-examined the CCTV footage meticulously. Suddenly, a detail caught my eye. When Julian came home tonight, he was wearing the Patek Philippe watch I had given him on his left wrist. I had splurged on that watch for our 5th wedding anniversary. He wore it everywhere and never took it off. I zoomed in on the photos Chloe sent and looked closely at the man's wrist. The photo was incredibly blurry, but I could faintly make out a watch on his left wrist. A silver band. The design looked identical to Julian's. "This can't be happening," I muttered in disbelief. My phone buzzed again. It was a new message from Chloe. "Claire, they just left the restaurant. They got into a black Porsche and headed west. Should I follow them?" I hesitated for a few seconds before replying. "No, it's okay. You should go back to your hotel and get some rest. I'll handle this. But, trust me, I think I know what to do." After ending the conversation, I immediately searched for flights online. The earliest one to Miami was at 7:20 a.m. It wasn't too late to book. Without a moment's hesitation, I paid for the ticket. After all this, I went back to the study door. The meeting was still in progress. "Miss Albright, this quarter's financial report is generally fine, but we need to shorten the collection period for the UK payments." Julian's voice was clear. It was unmistakably his voice. I was so familiar with it. We'd dated for 3 years and been married for 5. I'd heard this voice countless times. He had a habit of twirling his pen with his right hand when he spoke, furrowing his brow slightly when he was thinking, and leaning forward slightly to emphasize an important point. But who was the man in Miami? I returned to the bedroom and opened Julian's closet. The charcoal gray cashmere coat was hanging quietly on the far left, even covered with a dust bag. I took it out and turned the sleeve inside out to check. The small embroidery pattern was intact, with no signs of wear. The tag was even still attached. Wait. A thought suddenly struck me. When I bought this coat, I had bought 2. One for him, and one I intended to give to his cousin, Evan Parker. Evan was 2 years younger than Julian. They grew up together under the same grandfather and looked very much alike. From the back, they were nearly identical. Moreover, when the coats arrived last month, I received both. I gave one to Julian and put the other one in the closet of the guest room, planning to give it to Evan the next time he was in New York. If this coat was still in the closet, then what about the one Evan had? I immediately picked up my phone and checked Evan's profile on a messaging app. We didn't talk often, but we exchanged greetings on holidays. I opened his Instagram. His most recent post was from 4 p.m. this afternoon. The photo was of a blue ocean beach, with the caption, "Finally, a peaceful afternoon. The sea breeze is so healing." The location tag was South Beach, Miami. I let out a sigh of relief. It must have been Evan. Chloe must have mistaken him for Julian. She had met Evan a few times, but the 2 cousins looked so alike that she wouldn't have been able to tell them apart from behind. Just as I was about to text Chloe to clarify, a news alert popped up on my phone. Young entrepreneur Evan Parker shares startup insights at Singapore Investment Summit today. I clicked on the news article. Inside were several high-resolution photos. In the pictures, Evan was wearing a navy suit, standing at a podium, and giving a passionate speech. The banner in the background clearly showed the date, December 28th. Today, Evan was in Singapore. How could he possibly be in Miami at the same time? So, who on earth was the man in Miami? A wave of dizziness washed over me, and I had to grab onto the bedpost to sit down. If it wasn't Evan, who could it be? Could it really be Julian? but he was clearly in the study having a meeting. An idea suddenly flashed through my mind. Could it be a pre-recorded video? But I dismissed this thought as soon as it appeared. When I brought him the milk just a little while ago, he had turned to me, smiled, and said, "Thanks, honey. You go ahead and sleep." That was clearly a real-time interaction, not a recording. Besides, the other people in the video conference were also talking in real time, discussing the latest project updates. It wasn't something that could be pre-recorded. I put on a robe and swung open the study door. Julian looked up at me, a little surprised. "What's wrong? You're still awake." The executives on the screen all looked at me through the camera. Mr. Davis smiled and greeted me. "Mrs. Parker? Staying up with your husband while he works? You two are a model couple." I stared intently at Julian's face and asked, enunciating each word, "Were you in New York all day today?" "Of course, I was in New York." Julian frowned. "What's wrong? Did something happen? Where did you go today?" "I had a meeting at the office in the morning, had lunch with Mr. Davis at the company cafeteria, met an investor in the afternoon, and came home a little after 5. He looked at me with a puzzled expression. "Claire, what's gotten into you?" I didn't answer, instead saying, "Let me see your phone." "My phone?" Julian hesitated for a moment, but then handed it to me. "You know the password." I opened his phone and went through everything: call history, text messages, even the phone's location data. All the data indicated that he had indeed been in New York today. He hadn't been to any airport or purchased any plane tickets. "Julian, I need to interrupt your meeting for a moment," I said, turning to the camera. "Gentlemen, could you confirm one thing for me? This meeting tonight, has Julian himself been present from start to finish?" Mr. Davis, Miss Albright, and Mr. Chen all looked bewildered. After a moment, Mr. Davis spoke up. "Of course, it's him. We've been looking at him since 8 p.m. Mrs. Parker, is something wrong?" I took a deep breath. "No, I'm sorry to have interrupted. Please continue." I closed the study door and leaned against the hallway wall, feeling all the strength drain from my body. I went back to the bedroom and opened the photos Chloe sent again. I examined them one by one. The man's back, that coat, that body proportion, even the way he walked. It was undeniably identical to Julian. But the CCTV showed he was at home, his colleagues confirmed he was in the meeting, and his phone's location data proved he was in New York. So, who on earth was the man in Miami? Suddenly, one person came to mind: Leo Vance. Leo was Julian's college roommate and best friend. More importantly, Leo's appearance and build were somewhat similar to Julian's. Back in college, people often confused the two of them. Later, Leo moved to Miami to start a business, and we hadn't seen him in a few years. I found Leo's contact in my phone. I couldn't see any recent activity. I hesitated for a moment, then sent him a text. "Hey Leo, what have you been up to lately?" I waited for over 10 minutes, but there was no reply. 3:30 a.m. I couldn't hold on any longer. I lay down in bed and forced myself to try to sleep. I had to fly to Miami tomorrow, so I needed to conserve my energy. But as soon as I closed my eyes, all sorts of images swirled in my mind. Julian having a meeting in the study, the back of the man in Miami with his arm around a woman, and that charcoal gray coat. In a daze, I heard the study door open. I opened my eyes. Julian was walking into the bedroom. He moved very carefully, as if afraid of waking me. "Meeting over?" My voice was a little hoarse. "Yeah, just finished." He sat on the edge of the bed and touched my forehead. "You're acting strange today. Are you feeling sick?" "No, I paused for a moment, then said, "I had a nightmare." "What kind of dream?" "A dream about you." I looked straight into his eyes. "I dreamed you were in Miami with another woman." Julian laughed. "Silly, as if I would ever do that. I only have eyes for you." When he said this, his gaze was clear and firm, without any hint of wavering. This was the Julian I had known for 8 years, dated for 3, and lived with for 5. I knew him so well. But what about Chloe's phone call and those photos? The next morning at 5:30 a.m., my alarm went off as scheduled. I got up quietly. Julian was still sound asleep. I left a note on the nightstand. "Chloe ran into some trouble in Miami. I'm going to check on her. We'll be back in the evening." I packed a small bag and quietly left the house. On the way to the airport, I got a text from Chloe. "Claire, are you really coming? I thought about it all night, and I think I might have been mistaken. The lighting was so dim." "I'm in a cab on my way to the airport now," I replied. "Even if you were wrong, it's fine. I could use a trip to Miami to get some fresh air anyway." "Well, in that case, I'll pick you up from the airport." The plane took off on time, and a few hours later, I landed at Miami International Airport. As I stepped out of the terminal, a warm, humid sea breeze brushed against my face, a stark contrast to the dry, cold air of New York. Chloe was already waiting at the arrival gate. She looked quite haggard. Her eyes were slightly red, and she had dark circles under them. "Claire!" She came over and gave me a tight hug. "I'm so sorry. I think I really might have made a mistake. I made you come all this way for nothing. It's okay. Let's go sit somewhere first. Tell me in detail what happened last night." We found a cafe near the airport. Chloe ordered a latte but didn't take a single sip, just clutched the cup and stared blankly. "Last night, after dinner with a client, I left the hotel around 9:30, she began, slowly recalling the events. "I was originally going to go straight back to my room to rest, but as I was passing by Azure Point, I happened to see a man helping a woman out of a car. The man's back looked so much like Julian's that I just froze on the spot." "You're sure you saw him getting out of the car?" I asked. "I'm sure. It was a black Porsche Cayenne." The man very gentlemanly opened the passenger door for the woman, then put his arm around her waist and they walked into the restaurant. The woman was wearing a long, wine-colored dress. Her figure was amazing, and her hair was done up very elaborately. I took out my phone and showed her the photo she sent me last night. "Is this them?" "Yes, that's them." Chloe nodded firmly. I took the picture right then. "Look, isn't that the coat you bought?" I looked closely at the photo. It was definitely that charcoal gray cashmere coat. I could faintly see the embroidery on the cuff, but the photo was only of their back and side, so I couldn't see their faces at all. What happened after that? I wanted to go in and get a better look, but Azure Point is a members-only club, so I couldn't get in. I waited outside for about 40 minutes, and then they came out, got in the car, and left. I tried to follow them. Chloe lowered her head, but I was afraid they'd spot me if I got too close, and I wasn't entirely sure if I had made a mistake. I took a sip of my coffee and asked, "Do you remember the car's license plate?" "Only part of it. It was a Florida plate, 12G, and then either 6,872 or 6,827. "I can't remember exactly," Chloe said, checking the notes on her phone. "You said they headed west?" "Yes. I saw the car going in that direction." I opened Google Maps and checked the route west from Azure Point. Along that road were several luxury hotels and beachfront villa communities. If it really was Julian, where would he be staying? "Chloe, are you in Miami for work this time?" "Yeah. Our company is having a Southern Regional Conference. It's a 4-day trip. I arrived the day before yesterday. I was planning to do some sightseeing after the meetings ended yesterday, but you probably just made a mistake. Don't blame yourself too much," I comforted her. "But that coat, could it just be a similar design? Charcoal gray coats are common. It's probably just a coincidence." Even as I said this, I couldn't convince myself. That coat was a limited edition, with only 50 pieces made worldwide. One was in my closet at home, and the other I had intended for Evan but hadn't given him yet. If the person in Miami was wearing the same design, there were only 2 possibilities. Either he had stolen it, or I didn't want to think about it anymore. "Claire, let's go to Azure Point together. Maybe we can find out something," Chloe suggested. We took a taxi to Azure Point. It was a very high-end private club. The exterior was understated and low-key, but luxury was evident in every detail. Just the landscaping at the entrance spoke volumes about its value. "Good morning. Do you have a reservation?" A staff member at the entrance politely stopped us. "We just have a question. Last night around 9:30, a couple was dining here. The gentleman was wearing a charcoal gray coat, and the lady was in a long, wine-colored dress," I said, trying to fish for information. "I'm very sorry, but we cannot disclose any information about our clients," the staff member replied with a smile, his tone firm. I thought for a moment, then took out my phone and showed him a photo of Julian. Did this man come here last night? The staff member glanced at it and shook his head. I'm sorry. I wasn't on duty yesterday, so I don't know. And even if I did, our policy prohibits me from telling you. It seemed this approach wasn't going to work. We left Azure Point and looked around the area. There were several upscale restaurants and hotels nearby, a popular spot for the wealthy and business people. Should we head west? Chloe said. You said their car went in that direction. I nodded. We took a taxi to a villa community to the west. There were a few top-tier beachfront villas here, and the surroundings were very quiet. But trying to find one person in such a large area was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Claire, what if we just report it to the police? Chloe suggested. If it really is Julian. No police. I cut her off. I have my own ideas. In truth, I had no idea what to do. But my intuition told me that this matter was not as simple as it seemed. Reporting it rashly might only complicate things. We wandered around the area for half a day with no luck. As the sun began to set, Chloe suggested we go back to the hotel to rest. Stay with me. I booked a suite with 2 bedrooms. I agreed. Once we got to the hotel, I sent Julian a text. I've arrived in Miami. Chloe's situation is a bit complicated, so I think I'll have to stay the night. Julian replied quickly. Okay, be safe. Do you want me to fly over? No, it's fine. You focus on your work. All right. Take good care of Chloe, and call me if you need anything. Reading this conversation, my heart was in turmoil. If that man really was Julian, how could he be so calmly texting me? But if it wasn't him, why was someone wearing that one-of-a-kind coat? That night, Chloe ordered some takeout. We sat on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. Neither of us spoke. Claire, what if... Chloe started, then trailed off. What if what? What if Julian has a twin brother or something? Someone you don't know about. I gave a bitter smile. He only has one cousin, Evan. No siblings. And that cousin was at an event in Singapore yesterday. I saw it on the news. Then, this is really strange, Chloe frowned. I swear I didn't see it wrong. That back, that build, and that coat. It was exactly like Julian. Suddenly, a question popped into my head. Chloe, when you took the picture, did you get a good look at the woman? No. She kept her head down slightly, and her hair was covering half her face. I just saw that she had a great figure, fair skin, and a very elegant air about her. How old did she look, roughly? Based on her figure and outfit, I'd say she wasn't over 30. She looked very young and well-maintained. The night deepened. Chloe was already asleep, but I couldn't sleep at all. I stood on the balcony, gazing at the dark ocean in the distance. My mind was a tangled mess. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar area code. Hello, is this Claire Parker? The voice on the other end was a man's. It sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it right away. Yes, it is. Who's this? It's Leo Vance. My heart sank. Leo, you texted me this morning? I just saw it, Leo said. Your location shows you're in Miami. As it happens, I'm here too. Do you want to meet up and talk? My heart started beating faster. You're in Miami too, Leo? Yeah, I have a project going on here. But I see you're here too? Yes, I'm on the coastal roadside. Where are you? I'm on the west coast side, not far from there. Are you free tomorrow? I'll treat you to a meal. Yes, that would be great. After hanging up, my heart was still pounding. Leo was in Miami, and on the west coast side at that. The west coast was very close to Azure Point. Could it be? No, that's impossible. Leo was Julian's best friend. He would never do such a thing. Besides, as far as I knew, he was married to his childhood sweetheart. But that back, suddenly, a terrible possibility occurred to me. What if that person was neither Julian nor Evan, but Leo? Leo and Julian definitely had some similarities. If they wore the same clothes, it would be really hard to tell them apart from behind. But why would Leo be wearing Julian's clothes? That coat was definitely in my possession. Wait a minute, I suddenly remembered. When I bought the coat online last month, the store said this product was a limited edition, with only 50 pieces made worldwide. Could it be that Leo also bought the same design? This possibility was entirely plausible. Since Leo and Julian were longtime friends, it was possible they had similar tastes and liked the same coat. If that was the case, then the person Chloe saw was Leo, not Julian. That would explain everything. Why that man was in Miami while Julian was in New York. Why he was wearing the same design of coat. Why his back looked so similar. As I thought this through, I let out a long breath. My tense nerves finally relaxed a little. The next day at noon, I was scheduled to meet Leo at a seafood restaurant. Leo looked the same as I remembered, bright and handsome, with a friendly smile. He was wearing a white polo shirt and khaki pants, though he seemed a bit tanner and thinner than the last time I saw him. "Claire, it's been a while," he said, extending his hand first. "How's Julian doing these days?" "He's doing well," I said, shaking his hand. "How about you? How's your wife?" Leo's smile faltered for a second before returning. "We got divorced 6 months ago." I froze on the spot. "What? How?" "Let's just say it was personality differences." "We separated amicably," Leo said calmly. "I didn't tell Julian about this. I didn't want to worry him. I didn't know what to say, and the atmosphere became awkward. A waiter brought the menus, and we each ordered our food. After the waiter left, Leo asked, "Are you here in Miami on vacation?" Something like that. With a friend. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to ask directly. "Leo, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Anything." I took out my phone and showed him the photo. "Were you at Azure Point around 9:30 the night before last?" Leo glanced at the photo, and his expression changed subtly. "How do you have this picture?" My heart skipped a beat. "So, it really was you?" "Yes, it was," Leo admitted calmly. "I was at Azure Point the night before last, entertaining an important client." "Why? Who was the woman?" "A very important business partner," Leo said, looking at me. "Claire, are you misunderstanding something?" I took a deep breath. "Were you wearing a charcoal gray coat that day?" "Yes," Leo nodded. "Why? Where did you buy that coat?" "Online. I think it was an Italian brand." He thought for a moment. "I can't remember the name, but it was quite expensive. It was the same brand I had bought Julian's coat from." "Why did you buy that coat?" I pressed. "I liked the design, and I had to meet an important client that day, so I wanted to dress a bit more formally." "Claire, what exactly are you trying to ask?" I briefly explained what Chloe had seen. After listening, Leo laughed. "So, your friend mistook me for Julian. She said your back looked exactly like my husband's." "That's possible. Julian and I have always looked a bit alike. People used to confuse us all the time in college. You know that. And we have similar tastes, so it's possible we'd buy the same clothes." His explanation was very logical, but there was still a nagging feeling in my heart. "Then can you tell me who that woman is?" Leo hesitated for a moment. "She's a very important investor. It's a business secret, so it's not convenient for me to go into detail. But I can assure you, she and I have a purely business relationship." "But, Claire, you have to trust me," Leo said, looking at me seriously. "Julian and I are like brothers. How could I ever do anything to hurt him?" After lunch, Leo drove me back to the hotel. In the car, he brought it up first. "Actually, I have another reason for being in Miami this time." "What's that?" "I'm planning to invest in a resort project here. I'll probably be staying in Miami long term," he said, looking at the palm trees outside the window. "The pace of life in New York is too fast. I want to change my environment and take a breather." "What about your previous job?" "I've already quit," Leo said. "I'm going to try to make it on my own now. I want to do something I'm really interested in." Remembering what he said about his divorce, I asked cautiously, "Is there really no chance of you and your wife getting back together?" Leo was silent for a moment. "Some things can't be undone just because you want them to be. We were together for 12 years, and in the end, we realized we wanted completely different things. It's better to let go gracefully than to hang on in misery." His tone was calm when he said this, but I could feel the bitterness deep in his heart. "If you need any help, just let us know," I said sincerely. "Thanks," Leo smiled. "Oh, and please don't mention this to Julian for now. I want to tell him myself once things are more settled here." "Okay." When I got back to the hotel, Chloe hadn't returned yet. She had gone to a company team-building event. I sat alone in the room, replaying my conversation with Leo. His words all sounded reasonable, but something still felt off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it felt like I was missing a crucial clue. I took out the photo again and examined it carefully. The man in the photo was definitely Leo. I could confirm that now. But who was the woman? Leo said she was an important investor and their relationship was purely business. But if it was just a business relationship, why would he have his arm around her waist? And why did they look so intimate? I kept zooming in on the photo, trying to see the woman's face. But the angle and lighting were so bad that I could only see a blurry profile. My phone rang. It was Julian. "Honey, are you all done?" His voice was cheerful. "Yeah, just finished lunch. How are things with Chloe?" "Mostly resolved." I hesitated. "Julian, can I ask you something?" "What is it?" "When was the last time you saw Leo?" "Leo?" Julian thought for a moment. "About 4 months ago?" "He was in New York for a business trip, and we had a meal together." "Why the sudden question?" "No reason, just curious." "Is he doing well these days?" "I heard he quit his job." "You knew?" "Yeah. He called me last month and told me," Julian said. "He said he was going to start a business in Miami, and that I should visit sometime." My heart pounded. Did he say specifically what kind of business? "Something related to resort hotels, I think." I didn't ask for details. "Why?" "Oh, nothing." I changed the subject. "Is it busy at work lately?" So. The UK project is a bit tricky, so I need to pay more attention to it." We chatted for a few more minutes about everyday things before hanging up. For the next 2 days, I continued to wander around Miami. On the surface, I was pretending to be traveling with Chloe, but in reality, I was secretly investigating. I went to Azure Point a few times, but came up empty-handed. The security there was tight, and no matter how I tried to fish for information, I couldn't get anything useful. I also went to a few hotels near the West Coast. Pretending to be looking for someone, I described the woman's appearance, but no one had seen her. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, Chloe's conference ended. She had to return to New York. "Claire, you should come back with me," she said. "I really think I just made a mistake. Don't let it get to you too much." "It's okay. I'll stay 1 more day and then head back." After seeing Chloe off, I went to the West Coast again. This time, I didn't go to Azure Point, but to a nearby beachfront villa community. Since Leo said he was investing in Miami, maybe real estate in this area was part of it. I walked around the sales office, pretending to be an interested buyer. The sales consultant was very friendly, introducing the community and showing me a model home. "By any chance, have you had a client with the last name Vance recently?" I asked casually. "Mr. Vance?" The sales consultant's eyes lit up. "Yes, we have. Mr. Leo Vance signed a contract for a beachfront villa just last week, paid in full, cash." My heart began to race. Did he buy it by himself? "No, he came with his girlfriend," the consultant said with a smile. "That lady was absolutely beautiful, a real stunner. She had a wonderful air about her too. Can you describe what she looked like? I want to see if she's someone I know." She looked to be in her late 20s, long hair, very fair skin, great figure too, the consultant recalled. She was wearing a wine-colored dress that day, and she looked so elegant and sophisticated. A wine-colored dress. The woman in the photo immediately came to mind. I couldn't see her face clearly, but her figure, skin tone, long hair, and that wine-colored dress, it was a perfect match. "Do you remember when they came in?" I tried my best to keep my voice calm. "Let me check," the consultant said, looking through computer records. December 26th, last Thursday afternoon. December 26th, the day after Chloe witnessed that scene. Did the woman say anything else? She didn't say much. It was mostly Mr. Vance who coordinated the details with us, the consultant said. But I noticed she was wearing a very beautiful ring on her hand. Looked like a diamond ring. I think they might be engaged. My palms started to sweat. What kind of ring was it? It was an oval-cut diamond, looked to be about 2 or 3 carats. The craftsmanship was very exquisite, so it must have been an expensive ring. My mind went blank with a whoosh. That description was uncannily similar to a ring I had seen before. I left the sales office and sat on a bench on the beach promenade for a long time. The sea breeze felt cold against my face, but I barely noticed. Leo had bought a house in Miami, and he had bought it with a woman. The woman's description perfectly matched the woman in the photo. But Leo said he was divorced. He said his relationship with that woman was purely business. If it was just a business relationship, why would they buy a villa together? A beachfront villa, in cash. I remembered Leo saying he was starting a business in Miami and would be staying long-term. If it was for his business, did he have to buy a villa? Couldn't he have just rented a place? Unless he was planning to settle down here, and settle down with someone. But who on earth was that person? I took out my phone and hesitated for a long time before finally calling Leo. "Claire," he answered quickly. "What's up?" "Leo, did you buy a house in Miami?" I asked bluntly. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line. "How did you know?" "I heard it by chance," I said. "You said you were starting a business. Why did you buy a villa?" Leo paused. "Claire, that's my private business. I know it's your private business. I'm just worried." I tried my best to maintain a natural tone. "Since you're in Miami by yourself, we're all a bit worried about you." "I'm not alone," Leo said. Then, as if realizing his mistake, he quickly added, "Oh, I've made some friends here, so I'm not lonely." "The woman who went to see the house with you." "Claire," Leo cut me off, his tone becoming stern. "What exactly are you trying to ask?" I took a deep breath. "I just want to know if you're doing okay, and if there's anything you need help with." "I'm doing fine. Really fine." Leo's tone softened. "Thanks for your concern, but some things are just not convenient for me to talk about right now. When the time is right, I'll tell you and Julian myself." "Okay," I didn't press him further. "Then take care." After hanging up, I leaned against the promenade railing and stared blankly at the distant sea. Leo's reaction was too strange. If he had just bought a house normally, why would he try to hide it? If he and that woman were just ordinary friends, why couldn't he say so frankly? Unless he was hiding a secret that he couldn't tell. And that secret, perhaps, had something to do with Julian. In the evening, I returned to the hotel. As soon as I entered the room, my phone rang. It was a local number. "Hello. Is this Claire Parker?" The voice on the other end was a woman's. "Yes, it is. Who's this?" "I'm the public relations manager at Azure Point. I heard you've been asking about the incident the other night." My heart sank. "Yes, there are a few things I'd like to find out. I'm sorry, but our policy prohibits us from disclosing our clients' privacy. However, seeing as you're still investigating, I just wanted to offer a friendly piece of advice." The woman lowered her voice. "Some things are better left unknown." "What do you mean?" "You should figure that out for yourself." The other person hung up right after saying this. I stood there, clutching my phone, overwhelmed by a strong sense of foreboding. What did this call mean? What was she trying to tell me? I tried calling back, but the other party had already turned off their phone. I sat on the edge of the bed. My mind was in a complete mess. All the clues pointed to one possibility. Leo was hiding something, and that secret was related to the mysterious woman. But why would a staff member from Azure Point go out of their way to call and advise me? She said, "Some things are better left unknown." What on earth did that mean? Suddenly, a possibility occurred to me. A possibility I hadn't dared to think about deeply. What if that woman was Julian's mistress? No, that's impossible. Julian was not that kind of person. I knew him too well. He had always been good to me and had never once lied to me, let alone see another woman behind my back. But all the evidence was pointing in one direction. That coat, that back, that mysterious woman, and Leo's strange reaction. I didn't want to think about it anymore. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. I tossed and turned in bed, my mind filled with all sorts of speculations and doubts. 3 a.m. I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, put on a robe, and went out to the balcony for some fresh air. The night in Miami was beautiful. The stars were brilliant, and the sound of the waves in the distance was soft and pleasant. But I was in no mood to appreciate it. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was a text from Julian. "Why are you still awake?" I paused for a moment. "How did you know I wasn't sleeping?" I replied. I could feel it. He sent a smiling emoji. When you can't sleep, I can't sleep either. It's like we have telepathy. My eyes suddenly stung. This was the connection between us. Even hundreds of miles apart, we could sense each other's state. What are you thinking about? He asked. I hesitated for a long time before finally typing out a line. Julian, if one day I found out something unpleasant, what would you do? Unpleasant like what? Just a matter of trust. The phone rang immediately. Claire, what on earth is going on? Julian's voice was full of worry and anxiety. Did something happen in Miami? Hearing his voice, my tears finally broke through. Julian, I'm scared. What are you scared of? I'm scared of losing you. I'm scared that the trust between us will be broken. Silly. You won't lose me. Julian's voice was very gentle. No matter what happens, I will always be on your side. If something is bothering you, tell me. We'll solve it together. What if? What if? I sobbed. What if one day I doubt you? Will you be angry? I won't be angry. I'll be heartbroken, Julian sighed. I'll be heartbroken wondering why you didn't just ask me directly, instead of suffering alone. Claire, we've been together for so long. You know my character. No matter what, I will never deceive you. I know. Then get some rest. I'll pick you up from the airport when you get back tomorrow. After hanging up, my heart calmed down a bit. Maybe I was really overthinking things. Maybe everything was just a coincidence. The next morning, I checked out and prepared to go to the airport for my flight back to New York. As I was walking out of the hotel lobby with my suitcase, I saw a familiar back. It was Leo. He was checking in at the front desk, and next to him stood a woman. The woman was wearing a white dress, with her long hair down. Her profile was delicate and beautiful. I instinctively hid behind a pillar and quietly observed them. Leo was talking to the front desk staff, and the woman was looking down at her phone. A moment later, the staff handed Leo a room key, and the two of them walked towards the elevator together. The moment they turned around, I finally got a clear look at the woman's face. In that instant, I froze completely. Not only had I seen that face before, but it was very familiar. She was the newly appointed vice president of Julian's company, Isabel Thorne. I had met her a few times. Once, at a company year-end party, Julian had introduced her to me. She was an elite talent who had returned from the London office with outstanding work abilities and had been given a key position at the headquarters. I remembered that at the party that day, Isabel was wearing a black velvet dress. She was graceful and carried herself with elegance. Julian had praised her highly, calling her a key figure in the company's future development. But how could I have ever imagined that she would be with Leo? And they looked very intimate. After they got into the elevator, I stood there, my mind blank. I immediately took out my phone and looked at the blurry photo again. I couldn't see the front in the photo, but now I was sure. The woman in the long, wine-colored dress was Isabel Thorne. How could she be with Leo? What was their relationship? More importantly, if it was Leo and Isabel at Azure Point that night, why did Chloe make a mistake? Although Leo and Julian had some similarities, there were clear differences between them. Especially for someone who knew them well, it would be impossible to mistake them. Could it be? Suddenly, that charcoal gray coat came to mind. Leo had said that he had also bought the same design and wore it the night before last. But what if the one he was wearing wasn't his, but Julian's? No, that's impossible. Julian's coat was in the closet at home. I had checked it myself. And the CCTV showed that Julian was at home all that night and had never gone out. But then, how to explain all this? My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a text message from an unknown number. Miss Parker, if you want to know the truth, come to the White Lighthouse on the South Point Pier at 8 p.m. tonight. Come alone. I stared at the message, my fingers trembling slightly. Who sent this? What did they know? I looked around, trying to find anyone suspicious. But the lobby was bustling with people coming and going, and I had no idea who might be watching me secretly. My flight was at 3 p.m. It was now 9 a.m. There was still time. I decided not to go back to New York for the time being. I had to find out what on earth was going on. I checked back into the hotel, asking for a room with a sea view. I put down my luggage and sat by the window, staring blankly at the distant sea. I began to sort through all the clues in my mind. Julian was in New York. This was confirmed. Leo was in Miami. Isabel Thorne was also in Miami. Their relationship seemed very intimate. But what did this have to do with me? Why was I being dragged into this? And that text message, who was the sender? How did they know I was investigating this matter? What was the truth they wanted to tell me? The more I thought about it, the more I felt that this was not a simple matter. There was definitely a secret hidden behind it that I knew nothing about. Time ticked by. I sat by the window, waiting for night to fall. At 5 p.m., Julian called. "Honey, haven't you boarded yet? I checked your flight information, and the flight you booked has already departed." I paused for a moment. I changed my flight at the last minute. To a flight tomorrow. Why? Did something else happen with Chloe? Yeah, so I'm staying with her for another day. As I lied, my heart was in turmoil. This was the first lie I had ever told Julian. I had never done so before. "Okay, then take care. Do you want me to come over and keep you company?" "No, it's fine. You focus on your work." After hanging up, I leaned back on the sofa and closed my eyes. I didn't know what would happen tonight, but I had to go to that lighthouse. I had to know the truth. At 7:30 p.m., the sky was completely dark. I changed into dark-colored clothes, tied my hair into a ponytail, put on a small bag, and quietly left the hotel, the white lighthouse on the South Point Pier. I searched on the map, and it was about a 20-minute drive from the hotel. It was a rather old lighthouse, said to have been built a long time ago. It was no longer in use and had become a tourist attraction, but at night, there were very few tourists, making it particularly deserted. I got into a taxi and told the driver the destination. The driver was a middle-aged man. He hesitated for a moment after hearing the address. "Miss, why are you going there alone? It's dark and dangerous at night." "It's okay. I have an appointment." The driver didn't say anything more and started the car. My heart was pounding the whole way, and my palms were sweaty. I didn't know what was waiting for me, but I had to go. Everything that had happened in the past few days was like a tangled mess, constricting my heart and making it hard to breathe. I needed an answer, even if that answer would hurt me. 20 minutes later, the taxi stopped by a quiet little road. "We're here. The lighthouse is on the beach ahead," the driver said, pointing forward. "Are you sure you want to get out? Should I wait for you here?" "No, it's okay. Thank you." I paid the fare and got out of the car. Before me was a pitch-black beach, with the faint outline of the lighthouse in the distance. The waves crashed against the shore, making a rhythmic sound, and the air was filled with a salty, humid smell. I took a deep breath and walked towards the lighthouse. The sand on the beach was soft. I turned on my phone's flashlight to illuminate the path ahead. After about a 5-minute walk, the lighthouse finally appeared before me. It was a cylindrical building about 60 feet high, painted entirely in white, with a long extinguished lamp at the top. There were no lights around the lighthouse, only the moonlight casting a silvery white glow on it. I stood at the foot of the lighthouse and looked around. "Is anyone there?" My voice was scattered by the sea breeze. There was no answer. I checked my phone. It was 7:55 p.m., 5 minutes until the appointed time. I leaned against the lighthouse wall and waited quietly. At exactly 8 p.m., a flashlight beam shone from the distance. I instinctively squinted and shielded my eyes with my hand. "Miss Parker, you're here." A woman's voice came from behind the light. I recognized this voice. It was the woman who had called me this afternoon, the PR manager of Azure Point. "It was you," I said, a little surprised. "Why did you ask me to come here?" The woman approached and turned off her flashlight. In the moonlight, I could finally see her face. She looked to be in her early 30s, with short hair and neat features, and a hint of fatigue in her eyes. "My name is Rachel Cross," she introduced herself. "I've worked at Azure Point for 3 years. Why are you telling me all this?" "Because I owe you the truth," Rachel sighed. "Or perhaps I owe many people the truth." "What do you mean?" My heart started beating faster. "Miss Parker, do you know who the man dining at Azure Point that night was?" "Leo Vance," I replied. "I've already met him. He admitted he was there that night." Rachel shook her head. "No, the man at Azure Point that night was not Leo Vance." I froze on the spot. What are you talking about? That man was Julian Parker, Rachel said, looking straight into my eyes, enunciating each word. Your husband, Julian Parker. It felt like I had been punched hard. My mind went blank. That's impossible. My voice trembled. He was in New York that night, at home. He was in a video conference. I saw him with my own eyes. What you saw was only what he wanted you to see, Rachel said. Miss Parker, have you ever considered that a video conference could be pre-recorded? I brought him milk, and he even spoke to me. I almost shouted. It was definitely in real time. Are you sure it was really him? Rachel's tone was calm. Or was it just someone who looked like him? My mind was in turmoil. Someone who looked like him. Leo? No matter how much Leo and Julian looked alike, someone who knew them well could tell them apart, and that night, I had clearly seen Julian's face. Wait a minute. I carefully recalled the situation that night. When I brought him the milk, he turned to me, smiled, and said, "Thanks, honey. You go ahead and sleep." But the lighting in the study was dim at that time, and he was sitting with his back to the window, so I didn't actually get a clear look at his face. You're starting to have doubts, aren't you? Rachel said. Miss Parker, let me tell you the truth. That night, Julian Parker was definitely in Miami. He had dinner with Isabel Thorne at Azure Point and then went to a villa on the West Coast, and the person who created his alibi in New York was Leo Vance. My world felt like it was crumbling. Leo created his alibi in New York? Yes, Rachel nodded. That night, the person in the meeting in your study was Leo Vance. He wore Julian's clothes, used Julian's computer, and attended that video conference as Julian. How is that possible? My voice trembled. The people in the video conference all know Julian. How could they not recognize him? Because they are all Julian's people, Rachel said. Mr. Davis, Miss Albright, Mr. Chen, they all knew about this. They put on a play with Leo, just to make you believe that Julian was in New York all that night. I collapsed onto the beach. My legs had completely given out. The CCTV, the video conference, the phone's location data. It was all an elaborately crafted lie. Why? Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Why did he do this? What is his relationship with Isabel Thorne? Rachel was silent for a moment. Then she said, Isabel Thorne is Julian's first love. They broke up 10 years ago and reconnected 3 years ago. For the past 3 years, they have been meeting in secret. 3 years. A full 3 years. Julian and I had been married for 5 years, and he and Isabel had been meeting in secret for 3 years. That means, from the second year of our marriage, he was already betraying me. For the past 3 years, every "I love you" he had said to me, every gentle look, every affectionate hug, was a lie. How do you know all this? I looked up at Rachel. Why are you telling me? Rachel sat down next to me and looked out at the distant sea. Because I am also a victim. Her voice was laced with bitterness. 3 years ago, Julian came to Azure Point for a project collaboration. At that time, I was just an ordinary employee, young, naive, and easy to deceive. He was good to me, whispered all sorts of sweet nothings in my ear. He said his marriage was just for business, and that I was the only one in his heart. I believed him, and I was with him for 2 years. It was only later that I found out. He was also seeing Isabel Thorne at the same time. I was just one of his many mistresses. I froze on the spot. Many mistresses? Rachel gave a bitter smile. Besides me and Isabel, he has at least 3 other mistresses. One in Los Angeles, one in Chicago, and another one overseas. He had a woman in every city, and you, his wife, were just a tool to maintain his public image. My heart felt like it was being cut by a knife, and I couldn't breathe. What about Leo? I managed to ask. Why did he help Julian? Because they have a shared interest, Rachel said. Leo's company owes Julian a lot of money. If he doesn't help him, his company will go bankrupt, and Leo himself is not clean. He and Isabel Thorne also have an unspeakable relationship. Leo and Isabel? My eyes widened in shock. They just checked into a hotel together a little while ago. Yes, they are in a relationship, Rachel nodded. But that doesn't stop Isabel from seeing Julian at the same time. In this world, loyalty is the cheapest thing. I felt like I was in a huge whirlpool, sinking deeper and deeper. Julian, Leo, Isabel. Just how complicated was the relationship between them? Then the scene my friend Chloe saw. I tried my best to stay calm. Was the person at Azure Point that night Julian or Leo? It was Julian, Rachel said with certainty. I saw it with my own eyes. I happened to be on duty that night, and he and Isabel came together. He was wearing that charcoal gray coat, with his arm around her waist. They were very affectionate. But Leo said it was him that night. He's lying, Rachel cut me off. They have already coordinated their stories. If you asked, Leo would say he was at Azure Point that night, taking the blame for Julian. After all, the two of them look somewhat alike, and if they wear the same clothes, an ordinary person would have a hard time telling them apart. Plus, since Leo did buy a house in Miami and was seen looking at houses with Isabel, they probably thought that even if you kept investigating, you would only uncover the relationship between Leo and Isabel and not suspect Julian. I finally understood everything. This was an elaborately designed trap. Julian used Leo as a stand-in to create an alibi in New York, and if he was discovered, Leo would step up and say he was the one in Miami that night, taking the blame. The truth would have been buried forever. Do you have evidence? I wiped the tears from my face and asked as rationally as I could. Do you have evidence for what you've said? Rachel took out a USB drive from her bag. Here is the CCTV footage from Azure Point that night. Julian and Isabel's faces are clearly captured, and there are also photos I secretly took when they were at the villa. She handed the USB drive to me. In addition, there are chat records, transfer records, and photos of Julian with other mistresses over the past 3 years. It's enough to socially ruin him. I took the USB drive. My fingers trembled slightly. Why are you helping me? I'm not helping you. I'm helping myself. Rachel stood up and brushed the sand off her skirt. I was deceived by him for 2 years and lost my most precious youth. Now I just want him to pay the price. But my strength alone is weak, so I need you. She looked at me. There was a glimmer of expectation in her eyes. Miss Parker, are you willing to expose the true face of this scumbag with me? I stood up, clutching the USB drive tightly. I need time to process all this. I understand, Rachel nodded. But I hope you can make a decision as soon as possible. Julian is preparing for a very large project investment recently. If a scandal breaks out at this time, it will be a fatal blow to him. She took out a business card from her pocket and handed it to me. This is my contact information. Call me when you've made a decision. I took the business card. Rachel turned and left. I stood alone under the lighthouse, watching her back disappear into the darkness. The sea breeze blew. The salty taste mixed with the tears on my face. I don't know how long I stood there. It could have been 10 minutes, or it could have been an hour. My mind was in complete chaos. Countless scenes flashed through my mind. The day Julian and I first met, he walked towards me with a smile. The sunlight shone on him, and he was like a prince walking out of a painting. Our first date, he held my hand and walked down the street, promising to take care of me for the rest of my life. On our wedding day, he kissed my forehead in front of everyone and said that I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Over the years, he had been really good to me. Considerate and gentle, he had never once made me feel wronged. I believed that we would live happily ever after. But now, everything was shattered. The man I loved had never existed. He was just a fraud wearing a mask. With false tenderness, he had created a huge lie and trapped me in it for 5 years. It was 11 p.m. when I returned to the hotel. As soon as I entered the room, I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. Inside the USB, there were several folders, neatly organized by category. I opened the first folder. It was the CCTV footage from Azure Point. The video was very clear, and the timestamp read December 25th, 9:37 p.m. A black Porsche stopped at the restaurant entrance, and a man got out of the driver's seat, walked over to the passenger side, and opened the door for a woman. The man was wearing a charcoal gray coat, and the woman was in a long, wine-colored dress. The moment the man turned around, the camera clearly captured his face. It was Julian. There was no doubt about it. It was the man I had known for 8 years, the man I had loved for 8 years. My hands started to tremble, and tears streamed down my face once again. I continued to watch the video. The second folder was photos. The location was a beachfront villa. In the photo, Julian and Isabel were standing side by side in front of a floor-to-ceiling window, their backs to the camera, looking out at the sea. In another photo, the two of them were sitting opposite each other on a sofa, with Isabel leaning against Julian's arms. Their hands were tightly clasped. There was an even more damning photo. Julian was kissing Isabel's forehead. The gesture was exactly the same as when he kissed me. I felt sick to my stomach. I suppressed the urge to vomit and continued to check the other files. Chat records, transfer records, hotel stay records. Everything was irrefutable evidence. Julian and Isabel had indeed been together for 3 years, and he had other mistresses. Everything Rachel said was true. I stayed up all night in front of the computer. I looked at everything on the USB drive. By the time the sun came up, my eyes were red and swollen, but my mind was clearer than ever before. I knew what I had to do. I opened my phone and sent a message to Chloe. "Chloe, you were right. That night, you didn't see wrong." Chloe replied quickly. "Claire, what did you find out?" Instead of replying, I called her. I told her everything about last night, what Rachel had said, and the evidence on the USB drive. Chloe was silent for a long time on the other end of the line. "Claire, what are you going to do?" "I'm going to divorce him." My voice was calm. "But before I do, I'm going to make him pay." "Are you going to expose him with that Rachel person?" "No, I have my own plan." I got up and walked to the window. Looking at the brightening sky outside, I said, "Chloe, can you help me with something?" "Anything. Can you find out about the investment project Julian's company is currently working on? I need to know the specific time and amount." "No problem. I have a few friends in the investment industry. I can find out." "Thanks, Chloe." "Claire, whatever you do, I'll support you." Chloe's voice was firm. "That bastard doesn't deserve to be your husband." After hanging up, I started packing. I had to go back to New York. The battle ahead had to be fought in New York. At noon, I boarded the flight back to New York. As the plane took off, I looked back at Miami outside the window. This city had completely changed my life. A few hours later, the plane landed at LaGuardia Airport. As soon as I walked out of the terminal, I spotted Julian waiting at the arrival gate. He was wearing the familiar navy blue coat, holding a bouquet of red roses, and had a gentle smile on his face. "Honey, you must be tired." He stepped forward to hug me. I subconsciously took a step back. "What's wrong?" Julian's smile froze for a second. "Claire, are you not feeling well?" "No, I forced a smile. "A little tired from the long flight." "Then let's go home and you can get some rest." Julian took my suitcase and held my hand. His hand was as warm as ever, but I knew this warmth was fake, just like the man himself was a fake. I followed him to the parking lot, repeating to myself in my mind, "Claire, stay calm. You have to be calmer. It's not the time to reveal everything yet. You have to wait for the most opportune moment to deliver a fatal blow." After returning home, I acted as if nothing had happened on the surface. I cooked, did laundry, and talked to Julian. I did everything I was supposed to do, always with a gentle smile on my face. But only I knew that every moment was torture for me. Every time I saw his face, the images of those photos, of him and Isabel hugging and kissing, would flash in my mind, making me feel so disgusted I wanted to vomit, but I endured it. I knew that the longer I waited, the more ruthless the revenge would be. 3 days later, Chloe called. "Claire, I found out. Julian's company has an important investment contract signing ceremony on the 15th of next month. The estimated investment amount is $50 million. Where is the ceremony being held?" "At the Grand Hyatt in New York. Many media outlets and investors will be there." "Good." A slight smile appeared on my lips. "Chloe, I need you to do one more thing for me." "Name it." "Connect me with a few reliable journalists, preferably those in the business world, especially those who are not afraid to report on corporate scandals." "Claire, you're not planning to." I took a deep breath. "I'm going to expose him at his most glorious moment, in front of everyone." For the next 2 weeks, I secretly made preparations. I reorganized all the evidence on the USB drive, selecting only the most devastating ones. The CCTV footage, photos, chat records, any one of them was enough to ruin Julian socially. I also consulted with a lawyer about divorce proceedings. The lawyer said that with clear evidence of infidelity, not only could I get a smooth divorce, but I could also receive a substantial amount of alimony. More importantly, according to a prenuptial agreement Julian had signed, if he were to be unfaithful, 30% of the company's shares would automatically be transferred to my name. I had strongly insisted on this clause at the time. Julian had readily agreed, saying, I would never be unfaithful anyway. Thinking back now, it was truly ironic. The day before the signing ceremony, Rachel called. Miss Parker, are you ready? Yes, I'm ready. What's your plan? At the signing ceremony tomorrow, I will expose him in front of everyone. My voice was calm. Then the media will capture everything and spread it to the world. Aren't you afraid he'll retaliate? I am, I admitted. But more than fear, I can't stand to see him continue to live as if nothing happened. I understand. Rachel's voice was filled with admiration. Miss Parker, I wish you success. November 15th, the day of the signing ceremony. The ballroom at the Grand Hyatt was packed. Journalists and investors were everywhere. Julian was wearing a sharp suit and standing on the main stage, giving a triumphant speech. Behind him was a huge company logo and the slogan, $50 million investment, a new leap forward. I was wearing a black suit and sitting in a corner of the ballroom. I was clutching an envelope tightly. Inside the envelope was evidence of Julian's infidelity photos, chat screenshots, and a detailed description. In a little while, I planned to distribute them to every journalist present. Julian's speech lasted for about 20 minutes. After the speech, the signing ceremony began. He shook hands with the representative of the investment firm, signed the contract, and raised a toast. Camera flashes went off like crazy, and journalists bustled around, trying to capture this moment. It was at that moment that I stood up. Mr. Parker, congratulations. My voice was not loud, but the ballroom suddenly fell silent. Everyone turned to look at me. Julian's face stiffened slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. Claire, what are you doing here? He smiled and walked towards me, trying to take my hand. On such an important day, of course, I have to come and support my husband, I said, avoiding his hand with a faint smile. But before I congratulate you, I have something I'd like to share with everyone. I opened the envelope and distributed the materials inside to the journalists present, one by one. What is this? A journalist asked curiously. Another side of Mr. Julian Parker. My voice was calm, but each word was like a knife. As you all know, Mr. Parker is an elite in the business world and a model of a successful entrepreneur, but there's something you don't know. He is also a serial adulterer and a scumbag. A murmur went through the ballroom. Julian's face instantly turned ashen. Claire, what are you talking about? He tried to maintain his composure and walked towards me. There must be some misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I laughed coldly and pointed to the materials in the journalist's hands. So are these photos fake? Are these chat records fake? And you whispering sweet nothings to Isabel Thorne in a villa in Miami? Was that also a misunderstanding? Julian's face grew even stiffer. He had probably never imagined that I would have this evidence. Claire, let's talk about this at home, okay? He lowered his voice and tried to pull me aside. Let's not do this here. Why? I shook off his hand. My voice grew louder. Weren't you afraid of this when you were out with other women? Weren't you afraid when you were deceiving me? The journalists had already started taking photos like crazy. The flashes were non-stop, and the representatives of the investment firm just looked at each other, their expressions grim. This investment was probably off the table. The events that followed were like an uncontrollable storm. The media reports came pouring in, and the news, business elite Julian Parker's infidelity exposed by wife, became the #1 trending topic. After seeing the evidence, the investors immediately announced the termination of their cooperation on the spot. The $50 million investment went up in smoke. Julian's company's stock price plummeted, and his partners rushed to sever ties, and I became the talk of the town. Some people criticized me for not considering the bigger picture and ruining the company, while others praised me for bravely exposing a scumbag. But I didn't care what the world said. All I wanted was justice. 3 days after the signing ceremony, I officially filed for divorce in court. Thanks to the mountain of evidence of his infidelity, the court quickly granted the divorce. According to the prenuptial agreement, 30% of Julian's company's shares became mine, and I also received a substantial amount of compensation for emotional distress. The moment I received the judgment, I finally let out a sigh of relief. This nightmare was finally over. The first week after the divorce, I sold all of the 30% of the shares. Although I didn't get a high price because the company's stock had plummeted, it was still enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life. I used the money to buy a small apartment in New York and started a new life. The days without Julian were much more freeing than I had imagined. I no longer had to worry about his lies, nor did I have to guess if he was doing something else outside when he came home late. I could sleep in, eat whatever I wanted, and do whatever I wanted. 3 months later, I got a job at a design firm. The salary wasn't high, but every day was fulfilling. My colleagues didn't know my past and treated me like a normal new employee. I also enjoyed starting over, living a completely new life. One day, on my way home from work, I ran into Leo at the entrance of my apartment building. He looked much more haggard than 3 months ago. His eyes were sunken, and his face was full of fatigue. "Claire," he called out to me, "can we talk?" I stopped and looked at him. "If you have something to say, say it." Leo was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I'm sorry. That night at your house, pretending to be Julian, that was me. I deceived you." "I know." My tone was calm. "So? I just wanted to apologize to you in person." Leo lowered his head. "I shouldn't have helped Julian, even though I knew what kind of person he was. I should have told you earlier, but you didn't." "No, I didn't." Leo gave a bitter smile. "So I'm paying the price now. My company went bankrupt, and my wife left me." I didn't say anything, just quietly looked at him. "Claire, please forgive me." Leo looked up, his eyes pleading. "I know what I did was wrong, but..." "Leo," I cut him off. "You don't need my forgiveness. What you need is to properly reflect on yourself and start over as a new person." After I finished speaking, I turned and left. I heard Leo's long sigh behind me, but I didn't look back. One spring day, a year later, I met a strange man at a cafe downstairs from my office. He was wearing a comfortable white shirt and black-rimmed glasses, and he had a very gentle, scholarly air about him. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" he asked, pointing to the seat opposite me. "No, please, sit down." He sat down, ordered an Americano, and opened his laptop to start working. We sat there, each engrossed in our own work, without saying a word. A little while later, he suddenly looked up at me and said, "You don't look very happy." "Really?" I was a little surprised. "I just have a lot on my mind. Sometimes, thinking too much only makes things harder for yourself." He smiled. "Why don't you try letting go of the past and enjoying the present?" I was stunned for a moment. Then I smiled along with him. "You're right." We talked for a long time that day. His name was David Chen, a freelance writer who loved to travel and take photos. His smile was warm, and he looked at you seriously when he spoke. He was a completely different person from Julian. When we were about to leave, he asked me, "If there's a chance next time, can we have coffee together?" I thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." The events that followed, like all beautiful stories, unfolded naturally. David became my boyfriend, and then my husband. We traveled together, watched sunrises and sunsets together, and experienced the joys and sorrows of life together. He wasn't perfect, but he was real. He would hold me when I was sad, and he would rejoice with me when I was happy. He didn't whisper fancy words of love, but I could feel his love in every action he took. One day, we were lying on the balcony chairs, watching the stars. David suddenly asked, "Claire, have you ever regretted it?" "Regretted what?" "Exposing Julian like that." I thought for a moment, then shook my head. "I don't regret it. If I had endured it back then, I would probably still be living in that lie, in pain. It was because of my courage back then that I was able to meet you." David turned his head and kissed my forehead. "Claire, thank you for choosing me." I leaned into his arms and looked at the star-filled sky. A smile appeared on my lips. That late-night phone call had changed my destiny. That call had made me see the true face of one person, and it had also allowed me to find the happiness that truly belonged to me. The 2 a.m. ringtone was once the beginning of a nightmare, but looking back now, it was also the starting point of a new life. Some things you have to lose to gain something better.